to our webinar today. This is Caradina Sale, and I am joined with Jason Jones and Yvette Kelly. This is our fourth webinar in our learning community focused around adult engagement, where it's called the Adult Engagement Dissemination Project. We began several months ago, and so this is our final webinar. We have opened it up to the entire CTAC community so that everyone can learn from others around engagement practices and what you can do differently or what you've changed to enhance those engagement practices in your organization. So thanks so much for being here. We're going to get started. A lot of people are still joining, but we just welcome them as they join. And I just want to highlight who our presenters are. So again, myself, Yvette, and Jason, and then we have one of your colleagues, Carrie Caldroni, from an organization in Long Island, and she's going to be presenting on some of the changes that she and her colleagues made in their organization around the beginning stages of those engagement skills and engaging with participants. Ruth Colon-Wagner has been a part of this project, and she's unable to make it today because she's not feeling well, but she sends her regards. So I just wanted to start with where we've been. So this is just to highlight with our learning community. We have 14 organizations that have been participating with us in the past 6 months, which included webinars and consultation calls on the following topics. So we had an in-person training where we met some of you upstate and some of you here in New York City. And we talked about best practices and creating an implementation plan. We've been checking in on that implementation plan ever since. We talked about the importance of a quality supervisory process and the effects on engagement practices and how important that was. Yvette Kelly shared a lot of information around that. We talked about the characteristics of engagement best practices from the first contacts to ongoing engagement, so thinking about those first beginning contacts and how very important they are, and some changes that you can make in that beginning relationship to really enhance engagement. And then we talked about the barriers associated with engagement along with ongoing consultation that we had consultation webinars where you were able to participate as well. So that's just a kind of a highlight of everything that we've been doing over the past 6 months as a learning community. And then part of this was open to the broader CTAC audience. So several organizations from our wider CTAC audience participated in several webinars on quality supervisory process and the characteristics of engagement best practices, and then barriers, and then also participating in ongoing consultations. So we've done a lot of work over the 6 months. So the point of today's webinar is just to kind of highlight some of this work and then figure out from you, where you want to continue and to continue and keep up the hard work that you've already started. So we really encourage you to chat in with us along the way if you can. We'd love to hear from you and figure out ways that we can also continue to support your hard work. So the successful use of engagement practices, just as a reminder, why we even began this project in the first place, was that we heard from many organizations that no-show rates and participation in services is something that you're really concerned about. So we together created this project so that it would align with participants' felt need, emphasize a positive outcome and purpose, that skilled providers, that's you all, with collaborative supervision, we're delivering these practices. That's really important. That there's honest and consistent participant feedback in your organization. That really one of the biggest messages I think that we've been communicating along the way is creating a culture of feedback in your organization so that you're giving feedback to the participants, participants are giving feedback to you, and then as supervisors, you're giving constant feedback to your clinicians, and clinicians are giving feedback to supervisors, so that you're all participating in this transparent culture of feedback to really enhance engagement practices. Engagement practices start during the initial contact with the participant, and maybe that's on the phone, maybe those are during the walk-in hours, depending on how your organization functions, but it lasts throughout the course of treatment. So it's not just something that happens in the beginning, although it's very, very important to set the tone in the beginning. It's something that happens all throughout treatment until termination. And that's just kind of, just to remind us of the successful use of these practices and how important they are.
So we'd like to highlight some of the common challenges that members of our learning community, both upstate and downstate, have really taken on through this learning community and through this entire adult engagement project. So all of the challenges really centered on ways to engage participants in a way that increases the chances that the person will show up and attend regularly, really making sure that their participants are able to attend sessions, but that they're not disengaging prematurely and that they're getting all that they can from services. So some of the questions that were asked were, how do we activate and motivate a participant? How do we help a person make an informed decision that meets a felt need? How do we validate the participants, address their needs, and complete the required documentation? Really something, a challenge that we feel that all of you can really attest to. How do we better utilize time outside of our sessions to engage participants? Something that everyone really addressed, as well as how to address needs of groups in rural settings, something that's a little more specific to our upstate folks, but really applicable to everyone. And the idea here is that through answering these questions and really engaging with these different practices, they were able to overcome some of these challenges. And we'll talk about that later in the presentation.
Great. So I'm wondering if anyone on the line could chat in about how you attended to some of these challenges. If you would like to chat in and tell us how you've been attending to some of these challenges, you can just chat in the chat box over to the right. Are there any challenges that we missed?
So thank you for participating. I think that one person just said that in terms of better engaging participants outside of the sessions, reminder calls are really helpful. So they would call their participants after a session, really thanking them for really engaging in the process, asking them if they had any questions that could be cleared up, and just reminding them of the next session and really attending to any barriers to attending the clinic.
Great. Thank you.
All right, and moving on to some of the other challenges. I mean, part of this learning collaborative and web-based training was to really talk about some of the challenges from a supervisory perspective and how the supervision process is so important to engagement, right, to supporting therapists and clinicians and doing the work and really guiding them and doing supervision. And so here were some of the challenges that stood out from the group regarding the supervisory process. So there are concerns of participants related to someone new coming to the group. So when you are running a group, you have new participants coming. So the concern is how do you address that with participants, right? How do you get them to be able to accept a new group member, especially if you're having a group on a rolling basis? And how do you get participants to adopt a new format? How do you provide psychoeducation such that they're accepting of that and willing to be a part of kind of doing something different? And discomfort from the group facilitators, and this is a big piece, because a lot of times that we know sometimes when you are coming to an agency, there's limited focus on kind of what does it take to run groups successfully. So really this is a piece in terms of supervisors really promoting learning around how do you run a group, right? How do you ensure that you stay on track with the group? So establishing ongoing supervision to ensure that your group facilitators demonstrate a very high level of competency. And of course, as we all know, time and competing demands really does have implications for how much time, providers are able to spend with their supervisees. But what we know is that it's important in order to ensure that we really work on refining engagement skills from an organizational perspective. We know that supervision is an important piece of that process. So we're going to move on. We'll just take a real poll question just in terms of, so for those supervisors who've joined us on the call, how helpful has this webinar series or learning community been in strengthening your role and supporting the staff you supervise in group work? So there's very helpful, somewhat helpful, and not helpful. I'm going to give you just a few minutes to submit your answers, and then we will review what you guys said. A few more seconds. All right, do we have poll results? In a few minutes to come. So what did you guys say about what has been helpful? All right, so most of you said, some of you said it's been very helpful. There's a few that have been, it's been helpful or somewhat helpful, and there's a couple who were not able to submit their answers. So if there's any questions that you have or any comments that you want to ask us, make sure to chat in the chat box, and we'll be willing to enable to accept your questions around that. And just let us know. If you thought things were not helpful, please let us know that as well as some of those things that you might have used and found were very helpful. We'd love to see you chat that in. Thank you. So moving on to poll question number 2. What best describes the progress you've made in improving the quality of engagement practices since participating in our adult engagement project? Again, we're going to give you a few minutes to submit that question. Polls are open. It takes a few minutes for the answers to come up. So again, what best describes the progress you've made in improving the quality of engagement practices since participating in our adult engagement project? I'm just waiting for the answers to come up. All right. So some of you said you've made excellent or good progress utilizing, and I know that Carol will review some of the resource material that we have utilized in the past webinars for your review. So if you find those to be helpful, or if you haven't had an opportunity to look at those or utilize some of those, we're going to post them on our website. And some of you also did not get an opportunity to answer the poll. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvette. So I just wanted to take a moment before we go to the chat to review everything that we've shared with you and created together during our learning community. And I wanted to remind you that this recording will be on our website and along with all of these attachments. So there are several things that we gave you as part of the learning community, but also part of just for everyone who participated in our webinars. And one of these is a set of guidelines. And so we have guidelines from, this is ongoing engagement to termination. We have guidelines from the beginning of the work that you do with participants. I'm trying to find that. I don't know where it is, but we have that as well that will be up. So I just wanted to check in and make sure that everybody remembers all of this great resources. So this learning community is slightly different, and because we did open it up to the larger CTAC audience, but we wanted to make sure that everybody had could benefit from the work that we were doing. So some other things that we shared with you were these elements of engagement. And then we had a checklist that we recommended people use, if you could, to really self-assess how you're doing around encouraging the engagement of participants. And you can self-assess as an organization, or you could self-assess as individuals with supervisors. A lot of this is really just up to your discretion to see what you need in your organization to work with participants and increase those engagement practices. We shared with you some action step planning because it's also what's important that's done in between the sessions, and this is also a way to really help people work on their goals and also gather feedback. This is a session feedback form, again, to really to highlight that culture feedback, that this is between the participant and the clinician. And so, when we first asked, how often do you get feedback from your participant who are coming in for sessions? And many of you had said not at all, but we've gotten a lot of good feedback that this has been used and has been really successful, so we want to make sure that everybody had a chance to see that. We also talked about using a brochure in the beginning of treatment so that it's very clear about what your role is, what the participant's role is, what kind of services you offer, and to get a real sense of what treatment really means. And so our colleague Ruth Cullen-Wagner created this, and I'm sorry that it's sideways. I don't know if I can change that, but again, it will be on our website. It's a Word document, so that you can actually make changes to it and edit it to fit your needs. We really encourage that. And then we have something called our Improvement Planning Guide. And this is just for all of you, and this is something we really encourage you to continue to do in some way. So I know that several of you, I'm so excited you're going to hear from Carrie, for example, from her organization around starting in an orientation group. But many of you have chosen to focus on other things to change. And this is a way to work to really identify what you're going to change and how you're going to do it. So focusing on an improvement area, it's called your Plan, Do, Study, Act kind of guide, and you'll continue to pick other things that you want to do and follow this implementation plan. Okay, so these are all of the resources we have. We have a few others. They'll be on our website, so please feel free to utilize them as much as you want, and feel free to reach out to us as well to see if you are in need of other assistance with anything that we provided. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
Thank you, Kara. So we did want to really get a feel of what aspects of the learning community and the webinars that we've offered have been the most helpful. So if you could really utilize the chat box to your right, that would be really helpful for us. Mostly so that we would know what resources, what things that we went over were useful to you, so that if we do this in the future, we can adapt them. And we'd really like to get some feedback from all of you just around the process. So I'll just give you a few seconds to chat in, and then I'll really just share your feedback with the entire group. Thank you. So thank you, Kathy. She said that hearing what has been helpful to others and the feedback from the staff. So I think that was really the point of this entire learning community. Just the aspect that you're able to learn from other providers is really helpful. And that's really what we strive for. We have a lot of evidence-based and evidence-informed practices that we can disseminate, but I think that people that are on the ground working with participants every day can offer you the best information. Great. So we're hearing that the session feedback was really helpful, and I think that a lot of people have said that as well. So really utilizing that session feedback form. It may not be something that participants are used to, really hearing from their clinician. So how did this go for you today? What has worked, what hasn't worked, and what are some next steps that we could take together? I've heard from a number of you that have used the form that it's really helpful, but also just doing it informally after a session. So what's really going on and what can be helpful for you? Great. So we did focus a lot on trauma-informed care as well as cultural competence. So many of you are saying that that's been helpful as well, really focusing on how we're moving as a mental health field. So trauma-informed care is here, and it's here to stay. And I think that a lot of you are already utilizing a lot of its practices within your agencies, as well as cultural competence, something that cannot be stressed more. So thank you so much for saying all of that as well. I'm just going to give time for a few more suggestions and things that have been working well.
So thank you. Amy reports that they haven't used specific documents, but they've really built in discussion with participants to provide clear expectations and orientation, gathering session feedback, and developing clear plans for in-between sessions. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. We hear from Joseph that having staff contact clients the day prior to session to ensure attendance. So those are those reminder calls that Jason mentioned earlier, the reminder texts, whatever works best for you, that there's something consistent in terms of reminding people of them to attend is helpful. The trauma poster was helpful for several of participants. Wonderful, Sarah, thank you. Having the webinars available for staff to go back to as refreshers has been helpful. That's great. Yes, we really recommend that the webinars are a tool for you to use either in staff meetings, individually, any way that you'd like. This is all a resource for you to use in the best way possible, because you as clinicians, you as supervisors know what's best for you and what could be most helpful. But we just like to provide resources for you to use in any way that's helpful. The client participant satisfaction survey has been helpful. Great. Guidelines on communication for use by all staff and those initial contacts from ongoing contacts is really helpful. Thank you, everyone. This is wonderful. Thank you for all of your chatting in. We really appreciate it. And it really sounds like you all have been able to take bits and pieces of the resources and been able to utilize them. And that's exactly what we want to have happen. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for participating. And please feel free to continue chatting in as we go through the presentation. So we did want to highlight one really interesting model that Carrie Caldroni has adapted at her agency. So it's an orientation model that she's used to really engage participants. So we wanted to invite her to really just briefly chat about it, what's worked, what hasn't, and just giving us her general feedback from the process.
Hello. Carrie, are you there?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Hi.
How are you? Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, not a problem. I have Ken Fitzgerald with me also.
Hello.
He's a team leader that also helps with the group.
Wonderful. Please share with us what you guys have been doing and what's been most helpful. And we've just been so impressed with the hard work that you guys have been doing, and we thought it'd be great to give you an opportunity to share with your colleagues today.
Okay. Well, let me start as the last time we were on the call. This is a group that we've been running only for about 2 months now. So we really are kind of in a pilot to, get the client feedback, see how the clients are benefiting from the group, see what we have to do to, change the group up a little bit. So far from the clients who have been attending, we're getting very positive feedback in the sense that, they're feeling it's very helpful in understanding what clinic services are and what to expect from clinic services, understanding what's out in the community for them and to receive the supportive services from the community and how to negotiate what happens if they end up hospitalized. So within that, the participants have provided wonderful feedback regarding those who attend the group that they feel they're getting a lot. We're having because again, it's new to the clinic itself, so all our new clients who are coming in, probably getting about a 50% show rate to the group. So we're at a stage where we're kind of trying to find out how to work that we can improve upon that. So we do have the, team leaders reaching out to, the participants to find out what might be preventing them from coming to the group. We also are in the process of looking that maybe we may not need 3 sessions, that we may be able to do this in 2. So we're exploring that, somewhat from what the client feedback was that they felt that there could have been maybe 2 sessions versus the full 3. So we are starting to look that maybe we need to cut back 1 and just have it as a 2-session orientation. And that's currently where we are. We're going to take more of a look down the road to kind of see is those who are attending generally more motivated to come to treatment versus those who are entering treatment are, they're less motivated. So we want to take a look at that also, because those who are attended the group, attend individuals 100% of the time also. And that's really a summation of where we're at.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I think this just makes so much sense that when you have, early dropout, that maybe you start from the very beginning of that relationship and figure out a way to bring participants in from the very beginning. And your orientation group, which it sounds like you've created the curriculum as a team. Is that right?
Yes.
And so, and that you've been testing out the curriculum to see if it makes the most sense for the participants. Is it really helpful? It sounds like it has been helpful, but maybe instead of 3 sessions, you make it 2 sessions. You're billing this as a group so that it's not going unpaid. You're getting paid for it. And it's really a good way to bring people together in the beginning of their treatment process, giving them all the information, being transparent, being supportive, really developing that self-efficacy from the very beginning. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this. What about anything else that you've experienced during your participation with us that you've changed or you've benefited from or that you'd want to do differently? Is there anything else, any feedback you guys have around that?
Regarding the group or regarding
just anything else as part of the, thinking about engagement in your organization? Are you going to be doing kind of more individual supervision and sitting in on groups or anything like that, or?
Well, we definitely do, the individual supervision. That's something that you're talking about individual supervision over the sessions?
Yeah, like or the direct observation we talked about as well.
That's something we have yet to do. It's something that I'll let Ken speak on because that's something he's been trying to schedule to be able to meet with the client. So he's been talking with the therapist, trying to meet with the client to have a discussion with them. So I'll let Ken discuss a little bit on that piece.
What I've been finding with a lot of the clinicians that this is very new for us, and engaging in this whole entire model of education is relatively new. And so I'm really trying to work with their own anxieties, my own anxieties, and we're selecting clients. And unfortunately, the clients that we've selected haven't shown for those appointments. So, I have 3 scheduled this week, and I've made outreach to those clients, and I've actually met with them beforehand. So I'm sure that we're going to be embarking on this model and these observations this week. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
I would love to hear how it goes. I know this is one thing that we've been talking about throughout our time together with all you organizations around, one way that you can improve the use of engagement practices is with direct observation as supervisors, sitting in on a session with the clinician and the participant and really giving feedback, but sitting down with the clinician beforehand, going over what they expect to get out of the session, and also using that self-assessment can be very helpful. But also making sure that the participant, that the client knows that this is going to happen, that somebody's going to be sitting in on the group is huge. That's one of the most important things to have happen, right? That they're part of the process as well. And then after the session, that you would sit down with the clinician and you would give some feedback as well, but they would also say, this is how I felt like the session went, what do you think? That there's really kind of a reciprocal process going on. So that's wonderful. It sounds like you're getting ready to use this, that you've thought a lot about it, and just reach out to us if you have any questions and you need any more support. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing with us. It's really helpful for others to hear, I'm sure.
No,
Does anybody on the say again, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and thank you for providing us with this training, and it's really helped us out a lot. And rethinking engagement. I mean, it's really, changing the way we approach care and training your staff and, working on that, how important engagement is and really using it as a supervisory tool, a training tool, and being able to enhance the services because engagement, if your clients don't feel engaged, they really drop out.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm just going to hold you on the line for a minute to see if any of your colleagues have questions for you. Does anybody have a question for Carrie or Ken? Please chat in. You can chat in the chat box. Any questions for Carrie or Ken around their orientation model? Are you considering doing the same? It sounds like a really great idea. It sounds like, one of the things you've done is really bring the brochure to life, which I like. So a lot of people, we've heard back that they're using the brochure, but it sounds like you actually brought the brochure to life into this 2 to 3 session orientation group. We have a question from Joseph. He's wondering if you could explain more about coordinating care.
It's a very general question. In what sense do you think regarding coordinating care? What do you mean by that?
Could you explain, Joseph?
Go ahead, Kara. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Yvette.
I was going to say he's probably asking in relation to in your orientation, you do an overview around coordinating care. So maybe what are the messages that you let the participants know about that in the orientation session?
Well, we generally provide them with information, regarding the importance of consents to treatment, who else is involved in your care, the importance of making sure that the clinic has consents to be able to coordinate with others, and what information is shared, how we coordinate within the clinic, between the doctors and the therapists and the group therapists, how that's all coordinated.
Yeah. And be mindful that in the building that we're working in right here and now, we have many programs running. So when clients initially come in, they're kind of confused on where they're going to go for what. We have case management here. We have peer support groups here. We have the clinic. So just giving that concrete information on where they're all supposed to go to get what and what's actually available is what we provide, as part of the curriculum in this group.
That's great. Any other questions for Carrie regarding the model?
It doesn't seem like it, so I think we'll move on. Carrie and Ken, thank you both so very, very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk soon. So we're going to move on. Just a brief overview about, the engagement processes and practices, but also starting with why we joined the learning community, why you joined these webinars in the first place. So what we heard from you was that you really wanted to decrease your no-show rates, you wanted to improve participant outcomes, and you really, really wanted to decrease early termination. And so that's what Carrie and Ken were getting at when they were talking about why they really even created this orientation group to begin with, to attend to these issues from the very, very beginning. So this is why you've been participating with us. And this is just another review, very brief review over the engagement practices process. So thinking about, we talked about phone-based engagement, and then we talked about in-person engagement. And phone-based engagement is sometimes at first contact, but also most of you these days are having your first contact due to open access in person. The phone-based engagement is then more about those reminder phone calls, so that people are reminded of when they are to come in or to also check in on participants during the week is also very helpful. In-person engagement is the first contacts, those first meetings and how important they are, as well as the ongoing contact. And then that lower level are just considerations of practices that you can use throughout the time. So again, in the beginning, it's really important to think about trauma-informed care. That many people that are walking through the doors have had some really, really bad experiences in their lives, but also they've had bad experiences in prior treatment. And so attending to that in a trauma-informed way, then it encourages that keeps people safe, that reminds them of choice and collaboration, transparency, and how important those practices are, and motivational interviewing as well. So you could hear from Ken and Carrie that they really think about the motivational, where are people in terms of the readiness to change, that they're thinking about that during that orientation group, and they're helping people think through that is really important. And then in the in-person in those first contacts, those first meetings, again, thinking about trauma-informed care and motivational interviewing. But then those first meetings, you really start to begin thinking about discharge. That treatment planning is really discharge planning. And knowing that people aren't going to be with you for the rest of their lives, that they are going to come in for an X number of sessions, and you're going to reach goals together. And this is what it looks like. And one of the things that you can use are ropes. The review, the overview, the practice, the exercise, and the summary. We talked a lot about that in our webinars, as well as the action steps to really help people reach their goals and continue in making progress of treatment. And the whole idea that every point of contact is an opportunity for engagement. So this is your model. If you want to print this out and hang it up, and it's a good reminder for you about, the various practices and the various stages of engagement. And you can go back and look at where you're having difficulty and which phase so that you can make a plan to attend to it. So it sounds like Carrie and Ken really realized that those very first contacts were challenging and an opportunity to do something different.
All right, so we're going to take a few minutes to talk about the areas where we made the most progress. So we've heard from you guys, and you highlighted a few areas in which you felt that you made the most progress, one being gaining participant feedback. And I just want to reiterate how critical that is. Again, you heard Ken and Carrie mention they were considering reducing the number of sessions that they have for orientation based on feedback that they got from the participants around that. They really felt that this could be done in 2 sessions, and that's excellent. And that's the type of feedback that you want to really help you align what you're doing to what the needs are, so that people become engaged and feel that they are taking part in the process. But this also works from a supervisory perspective as well. Again, you're working with clinical staff to really try to role model for them obtaining feedback from the participants that they're working from. So that means that you as your supervisor as well need to be open to feedback and to changing, to utilizing that feedback to improving the process. So enhancing the engagement skills of non-clinical staff, again, that is so critical and so important as you work in agencies. Who's going to be the face of the agency when a participant walks in? A lot of times it's people at the front desk. And so these skills are relevant to them as well. And so that's key and important. Discussing engagement skills with seasoned clinicians, so just sitting down with therapists, having a conversation, looking at some of the challenges that they may be facing with no-show rates, and really kind of linking that all together for them. And really just providing supervision around that, engaging them and supporting them and helping them to enhance their clinical skills, which is the ultimate goal of supervision, because you really want them to become a competent practitioner who works well with participants and individuals.
Thank you so much, Yvette. I think it's really important, everything you said, and that you all have made some, important steps, and you've changed some things, and how you continue to do this is really important to think about as well. So we want to know about your next steps. So how are you going to continue to better engage participants? What resources are you going to utilize, and what engagement practices will you focus on? Are you planning on targeting specific clinicians, or will this be a group process moving forward? So that's for the supervisors on the line. So what are some next steps that you want to focus on in your organization? We'd love to hear from you now. How are you going to continue to better engage participants? What's your plan moving forward? Can you use any of the resources that we provided? Will those help you? And do you have a plan in place? So the idea is that you're not stopping your hard work now, that you're going to continue in a variety of ways. And I hear from Sarah, I want to do more with the participant feedback forms. Excellent. And there was someone that we've talked to in the past that was actually going to be collecting the participant feedback forms and seeing how the effect that may have on participation rate and show rate. And so I thought that was a really good idea. So that's something to consider as well. Anyone else? How you're going to continue to better engage participants, any kind of resources you're going to use, any kind of supervisory tools you're going to use. So Amy says continue to work on finding a way to better engage folks returning to treatment after they have been discharged for poor attendance. So people that leave treatment, they have the early termination, and then often there's a crisis and they come back. So how can you work on finding a way to better engage them so that they don't drop out, that you can continue to work with them from the very beginning? That's wonderful, Amy. That's really, that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes it's, what to do when there is a crisis, right? What do you do when there is a crisis, and how can we help you to stay with us so that it doesn't become this kind of revolving door of leaving and coming back when there's a crisis?
And Sarah, I also want to comment. Kara, this is I also want to comment on just going back to Carrie and Kim's orientation session. I think it's so important that you do that with clients as they come in so that they know what the expectations are. A lot of times participants are referred and they come and they're not really sure what the expectation should be either on their behalf or the provider's behalf. So really I think it really emphasizes giving them choice, giving them informed consent, letting them know what they are actually signing up for, letting them have some decision in that, and just, I think, recognize, no one likes to say this, but we can at least recognize that sometimes people are not ready when they walk in the door, and allowing them that choice of this is not the time for them, but that they could come back will help save you of, on the back end of scheduling appointments and not having them arrive.
Yes, thank you, Yvette. Very true. We have a lot more chats that just came in. So ongoing discussion during supervision and staff meetings to explore around the benefits to the session feedback and any challenges they're facing with clients who are not coming in. So really working directly with your staff and your clinicians to help build them up and really use that supervision time to think about, engagement and attendance would be really helpful. Continuing to format initial sessions to be based more on the client goals and current needs, not the history. Wonderful, wonderful, so that you're not spending all your time gaining the participant history, but you're really focusing on their felt need. We can't stress enough how important this is, that it is important to get that history and all of that and fill out the papers, but it's really important to attend to the felt need. We're going to work with existing staff, says Kathy, but also starting new staff out with more information and training in the area of engagement and the importance of engagement practices. That's wonderful. That's so important. I think that, for Carrie and Ken, I'm sure as new staff are coming in, that they're probably going to get everyone on board on these orientation sessions. And they continue the use of feedback forms in the future. And somebody else said to utilize ropes. They're going to continue to use ropes in the session, reinforce the use of ropes and how important that is during the session so that you really there's a continuation and a thread of treatment throughout time, from session to session. Joseph says to continue to improve staff communication skills through the use of the guideline sheets and to continue the use of psyche data to reduce hospital admissions and medication adherence issues. Wonderful. You all are just wonderful. Thank you so much for participating with us. I just wanted to give one more reminder about the next steps, and that's we're going to send out a survey to you in June and just get a sense of what you're doing and how it's going. But I also want to stress to you that we are available if you have any questions or concerns, that you can always email us and reach out to us at CTAC, and we'd love to be of service to you. We just want to check in now around any feedback that you have for our team. Is there anything we could do differently as a team to better help or support you? We'd love to hear from you because we're always looking for ways to improve the work that we do and the learning communities that we create and the webinars that we create. And any feedback that you have for us is greatly appreciated. So if you could chat that in. What could we do differently as a team to better help or support you? Please chat in with us. We'd love to hear from you. This is a really great opportunity for us to think about what we create in order to meet your needs. That we want to make sure that we're getting feedback as well. So there's a parallel process here, right? So anything that you can share with us about what we could do differently. How could we better meet your needs? How could we better help or support you in our webinars and in our learning communities, especially this one focused on engagement? It's been, I hear Joseph says it's been helpful making time available to speak about specific agency problems, so that you've been able to talk to me about your specific issues has been helpful, Joseph. Thank you. Yes, we are available to help you throughout the learning communities in our webinar series if you need individual consultation as well. We are available for that. And so I have talked with Joseph a few times. It's been great to talk to you, actually. But is there anything else that we could do differently? Is there Is there anything else that you all would like to see us do differently? Maybe you didn't know that that was an option and now you do. Should we have made that more clear in the beginning? Well, I'm going to take your silence as that we're doing a great job. Thank you. But we would really love to, to hear from you. Oh, so someone's just chatted in. We feel you've done a great job. Oh, thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much. The readily available use of webinars, the forms have been provided, the phone consultations, et cetera. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and as a reminder, all of our webinars are on our website at www.ctacny.com. Also, the resources are there so that you can download them and use them in any way that makes the most sense for you. So Joseph is saying that if we could come into the agency and meetings with other members of the staff and administration, that would be helpful. That's good to hear. I don't know if that's an option, but that's good to hear. I think that is a really important component of the work that needs to be done. Anyone else? Well, our information is going to be on the next slide, but I just want to congratulate everyone. You've done an amazing job. We just really appreciate you trying everything out and giving us feedback and being being with us in this webinar series in our learning community, and that we think you're just amazing and that you've done a really, really good job. So congratulate yourselves on your participation, and please keep in touch with us. So here is our contact information. Ruth, her contact is not here, but we can get it to you. Jason and Yvette and myself, and we are available to you. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns, and you will be getting a survey from us in June, probably in the middle of June, so that we can hear how it's going. Thank you so much to all of you for your participation. If there are any more questions or comments, please chat them in now. Otherwise, we're going to say goodbye. Yvette, did you have anything else to share?
Just wanted to reiterate that it was a pleasure hearing from them, and so if they do have comments after they get off the line, that they definitely could email us with those comments as well.
Thank you. All right, everybody, we hope you have a wonderful day. Keep up with your good work around engagement practices and be in touch if you need anything in the future. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.